What's going on, YouTube family? Welcome to Automotive Life. My name is Lucky, and today we have big news. The first domino in the online car retail space is officially fallen. Shift has filed for bankruptcy. Now, why is this such a big deal? We've been talking for years about how selling cars 100% online will simply not work. It is a flawed business model. Now, they're not the first ones to throw their hat in the ring. Microsoft and Amazon have also tried, but they realized it's such a headache and a nightmare, they walked away from this. I've talked about this hundreds of times on the channel, and finally it's happening where the first company decided to file for bankruptcy. Now, I'm gonna go over all the reasons why this won't work, how these companies are running out of money, and what you should do to protect yourself if you have purchased a car from a company that's going out of business. Now, selling cars 100% online seems like a great idea. People don't like dealerships. You could take the middleman out, you could save a little bit of money, and everything will work out perfectly. But it's actually the complete opposite. The reason why dealers are here is because it's a certain structure you need to maintain to operate a dealership. But before I go into that, I'm going to talk about why Shift winded up going bankrupt. Now, as you guys know, during the pandemic, cars actually went up in value. So a lot of these companies were pushing really hard through the pandemic selling cars. They were online, dealerships weren't open, people were able to take advantage of purchasing cars 100% online. The market was great, money was flowing, everything was peachy. I made a video about a year and a half ago making fun of how when we actually go into recession like we are now and interest rates go up, companies like this can't sustain because they can't buy cars, fix cars, or sell cars thoroughly and correctly as dealers can. So everybody laughed, said no big deal. As you guys can see, Carvana stock went from I think $320 at the high. Now it's down to maybe $8 to $12, something ridiculous. And so Shift and Vroom were not too far behind. Now Shift and Vroom both have a kind of unique concept. They want to have their cars located either at auctions or off storage facilities, not a traditional dealership. This was their way of thinking they can lower their overhead and save some money compared to Carvana. Now, unfortunately, Shift couldn't sell enough cars, they couldn't gain enough traction, and they were showing losses on their books because they purchased so many cars that basically were overbooked that when they finally got them cars out to retail, they weren't able to sell them. A lot of dealers have this big mistake of purchasing cars online without physically seeing them. So if you pay almost retail for a car at the auction, or you buy from people online, because I've sold a lot of cars to Shift, they'll go there and realize that, oh man, this car is damaged, it has some issues. Nobody physically put their hands on it. And so they winded up paying not only full retail for the car, but they winded up putting another $2,000 to $3,000 in it because of recon. They had to fix it, bring it up to a sellable condition. Also, a lot of the cars that they were purchasing had major issues that they didn't even know about. There was tons of videos you can look up online. People were selling junk cars to these companies online because we knew that they didn't check them. There was no QE, which is qualified employee. Now, qualified employees are critically important when it comes to being a dealership, whether you're buying or selling cars. There is a person, what's called a buyer. His job is to actually go out and purchase cars. He's going to be an expert of what the book values are, what banks are buying what cars, and what the recon costs are going to cost for something that has maybe a little bit of damage, some certain issues. You hire experienced people. The downfall with this is these people cost a lot of money, something that these guys didn't want to do because they want to do everything automated. They believe that an algorithm can correctly assess a car better than an actual person. And as you guys can see, they completely lost their ass, and that is not true. So now they don't want to hire a buyer, so they kick that person out. Another person that's critical to this is the service manager. Now, the service or recon manager usually looks at these cars and puts a dead hard number. Okay, we're going to spend $800 no more. If it goes over this price, we're going to send it to an auction. Because most dealers, traditionally, if we buy a car and we get it in the shop and we're like, man, it's got all these issues, all these problems, we're not going to dump money into it. We're just going to get rid of it. There's no use in chasing bad money with more money. It's just get rid of it. These guys are not taught the same principles as dealers are. So what do? They overpaid for a car, and then they're like, well, we got to fix it anyways. The market's going up, so everything's okay. So they accepted these bad business practices and started throwing more money at bad money. So now they bought the car for retail, put a bunch of money in recon, and they don't know what to do with it. And they were sending them out to third-party repair shops. The only reason I first learned about Carvana is because my old dealership was across the street from a drive time, and we used to fix their cars. And unfortunately, every now and then, we would get a message saying, oh, can you make this invoice to Carvana and this one to drive time? I didn't really understand it at the time, but I realized that they're both basically sister companies. And so we were fixing their cars for them, which is another thing that costs way too much money. You can't make profitability if you're sending your repairs out. Now, the last thing is your general manager or sales manager. This person's job is to actually regulate and see how many cars can we sell, what's a feasible number, which banks we can work with, and how we can get these cars out. And their job is to constantly be looking at the cars and the books to make sure that if the books drop too quickly, they can adjust prices to move that inventory out. But unfortunately, general or sales managers cost a lot of money. So once again, these online retailers don't want to do that. They want to use an algorithm, something that will tell them what the prices are. So these knuckleheads decided to go out and do this, and basically everything that we've learned about the car business, they did the exact opposite. Everything's going to be automated, it's going to be online, it's going to be better. And this is why they kind of told everybody that they were tech companies when they really weren't. They're basically just buying cars off an automated book with somebody making $12 an hour buying $60,000, $70,000, $100,000 cars. It's absolutely ridiculous. You can look online. There's a bunch of people that were interviewed that were Carvana buyers and Vroom buyers and stuff like this. Nobody with any automotive experience. Just regular kids out of college, just looking to get a good job or a decent job, something like that. Now, unfortunately, companies like Shift, Vroom, and Carvana are basing everything off of a great market. Now, traditionally, when you're doing volume, there's not that big of a deal. You want to just lump these cars out and move them. But if you look at like Carvana and some of these other places, you'll see that the prices of a Carvana car is usually higher than CarMax or even your local dealer because they have all this recon and they're trying to pad in a flat shipping cost or trying to pad in a flat recon cost, a flat financing cost. They try to lump all these things in there. So they have, we call it PAC. It's $5,000 on whatever car that they wind up buying because they want to make sure that their company can make money. But if you look at like Shift and Carvana and a lot of these guys' numbers, now when they make these quarterly reports, they're always talking about, hey, we sold this car and we're grossing $1,200 per car or per copy. But if you look at their cost of money, the money they basically borrowed from their investors and everybody else to pay back, the cost of money basically eats up their $1,200 profit. So they're not able to basically expand or actually grow. They're just basically making money to pay their debtors to go further into debt because they can't expand. So now we get this vicious cycle of not being able to sell cars for full retail, and now they're in damage control because they have to get rid of cars because they have too many of them. I can't remember how many Shift has, but I know they have thousands of cars that are getting ready to flood the market. Don't think there's a price drop coming anytime soon, but once these cars come out in the market, it's just, like I said, one more domino that's going to topple our way as far as the retail consumer. Consumers will have more buying power when it comes to these vehicles. Now, when it comes to Carvana, the only reason I think Carvana is going to outlast Vroom and Shift is because they actually have physical property. They own a lot of their properties where they have their little vending machines. And if you've looked in a few of my other videos and online, you can see that they actually were selling their properties to people and signing a lease for 20 years because they were trying to free up some capital. This influx of new cash is able to give them a little bit more time before their burn rate catches up to them. But eventually within, I'm guessing 6 to 12 months, Carvana is going to run out of money, and we're going to be talking about them here online. I remember talking about this about almost 2 years ago on my channel, and people thought I was nuts because Carvana and these online retailers were the darlings of Wall Street. Everybody loved them. Everybody thought that this was the way you want to buy cars. Screw the dealers. We hate dealing with people. We want to buy stuff online 100%. But if you look online, you can see all the problems you have with buying a car online. They look good in pictures. When you get them, they're absolutely shit. You got $10 an hour people looking over your cars instead of an actual certified mechanic that's getting paid like $30 to $50 an hour. These are the differences that make it worthwhile when you go to a franchise store. Plus, there was stories for years, people not getting their registration or their title. Now, this is going to be even worse because Shift, like I said, just filed for bankruptcy. So whatever creditors or debtors that they have are grabbing everything they possibly can right now, and they don't want to let it go because that's whatever hopes of money they're going to basically receive back from their investment. So unfortunately, if you bought a car from Shift in the last few months, your title could be held with these people. Now, rest assured, by law, they have to give it to you because the retail consumer has all the rights. But it's going to be weeks, if not months, of this process. So if you bought a car and you want to sell it or you want to refinance it or your bank's bugging you for the title, unfortunately, you may be stuck with that car for a little bit longer than what you're hoping. Now, If you haven't gotten your registration, you might be able to back out of the deal if you call them and just say, hey, take this car back. I don't send me the title, don't send me the registration. I don't want it, just get rid of it. You'll be able to give it back. If you can't file a complaint with your local DMV, because no matter what happens, they still have to abide by DMV rules. Another reason why these dealerships fail and these online things won't work is because the DMV paperwork is something that's very crucial. When I sell you a car, by law, I have to produce the title within 35 to 45 days, depending on your state. Now, Carvana, Vroom, and Shift, a lot of these guys, they're buying cars from different states and then sending them over here. I'm an expert in my field when it comes to Nevada. I know exactly what the Nevada DMV wants. If they want an affidavit of erasure, if they sign it wrong, if they need a notarized bill of sale, non-notarized bill of sale, they need a release of power of attorney. There's a bunch of documents that each specific DMV requires. And it's very hard to be an expert in every single one. So you had people from Carvana that were like stationed in Arizona or Texas doing titles for the whole United States. And the worst thing was, I'm like, okay, maybe they have people that were specialized. They flew people in from like, Wyoming. They flew people in from Texas. They flew people in from Nevada, Washington State, Oregon. Like they have specialists in every single field to make sure wherever they buy a car, they're good to go. Nope. Once again, $10 to $12 an hour employees. Now, I don't know why they didn't partner up with a DMV servicing company in each local state. That would have been much smarter. I always said that working with a bunch of dealerships that are already there is much easier as well. So one of the things that I'm thinking about doing, which is years away, but instead of I can do an online retailer, but instead of me doing like stores everywhere, almost like a franchise opportunity, like a McDonald's, where if there's a small local dealer in his area and he's an expert in his particular area, hey, I'm going to send you 10 to 15 cars. They're going to be on our website. They can come there and they can buy the cars from you. You get a certain commission for selling the cars and holding them, and you get nationwide advertising out of the whole deal. I think that'd be a great way to actually build these companies instead of just throwing this shit online and praying to God that people buy this stuff, because I don't know who is brave enough and crazy enough to buy cars online, sight unseen. Now, Shift did give you benefits of actually test driving the car. They would let you drive it for an hour. And that's another reason why they failed, because they would send people out, an hour out of their way. Drive the car to this person. They drive it. I don't like it. Go get me another one. So now they got to drive all the way back, bring the other car. Where a dealership, you can come there. You can look at all the cars and test each one just to see if you like it. So the model wasn't the greatest, but they did come with the right concept of not having a bunch of expensive land and overhead maintaining them down. But as you can see, this is another thing that really proves the point that car prices will come down because, like I said, the demand is not there. And this was one of the major dominoes to fall because, like I said, these online retailers, I believe, are just non-sustainable. But I'd love to hear your comments in the section below. If you have any opinions of, do you like Carvana? Do you hate it? Do you like Shift? Do you have a good experience with Vroom? A bad experience with Vroom? Do you like these online retailers? Because I know a lot of you guys don't like dealerships. And I hate to say it, there are a lot of asshole dealers out there, but there are some good people, some mom and pops companies that are actually part of the community. And unfortunately, a lot of your cities and states, majority of your sales tax, believe it or not, comes from an actual retail facility, either the mall or the actual dealership. So dealerships are a crucial part of maintaining your city's economy. So it's very important to have one in your local city or area. So this way your state, your city gets the sales tax it needs to grow. But unfortunately, you have to deal with a lot of shady dealers and a lot of idiots. But anyways, please tell me what your thoughts are in the comment section down below. I'll be answering questions for the first hour, and we'll see you next video.